with being virtual. You made it.
Hey, you're killing me, man. You're killing me. You
I'm
didn't tell
sorry.
me I had to be on a mobile phone.
You didn't know about the phone. That was the problem, right?
Right.
Thank you. Well, we made it work. That's what you're good at. You can adapt. Namaste.
Namaste.
I was looking at one of your podcasts, and you were talking about the new way to greet, and it doesn't seem like handshake is going to be, the new greeting. So it was either bowing or the namaste.
Yeah, well, I love the namaste. I think it's a great approach. They do it in India, and it's personal, and I think it's also a great way to connect with somebody. But I'm not sure that North Americans will embrace it. I think they should, but I'm not sure they will.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna see if I can set up my phone here to stand, and so I can talk to you.
You know what I was saying? I've seen your other podcasts, and you have this beautiful library, and your camera.
This is my office. This is my home office.
It's nice and spacious. I'm in New York City, so I don't have the room like you do.
Yeah, well, there's a great story to go with this. I told my wife, get whatever house you want to get. I need to have my own office. I want to have a wine cellar. It took her one day. She said, I found our dream home. I came, looked at it. It didn't have either of those. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I just wanted, an office and a wine cellar. And she said, look, this is when I realized that she should have been in sales, because she said, look, this space right here, you could build your dream office. So that's what I did.
I love the beams, though. It's very classy.
Thank you.
And sophisticated, just like yourself.
Thank you. See if I can set this up in a way that decent picture, but there you go.
There you go. You look good. You look good. So, why don't you tell us, I gave a brief bio. I don't know if you heard, but, I'm a big fan, been in BNI for 5 years. I think it's a genius. I actually was saying that I kind of incorporated my show, that I'm doing the same kind of way that BNI works, which is networking with all these different, members in different professions. How did you come up with the idea?
So I had gone to a lot of networking groups that I felt were very, very social. It's happy hour and hors d'oeuvres. There was no business being done. That is not the kind of network that I wanted to join. Then I went to some that were incredibly mercenary. It was, I felt like I needed to get a shower afterwards. I'd been slimed. Everybody was trying to sell to me. I didn't like those. And so I put together a group of people who I trusted. They trusted me. And my goal was to be relational, but not totally social. Be business oriented, but not transactional. And that's what I formed, was that one group. And what I discovered was that many people were looking for something like that. So I kept having people ask me to open up another group and another group and another group. By the end of a year, I had 20 chapters. And I'd like to tell you, I had this vision of an international organization, but at that point, I was just trying to, get referrals for my business and help my friends. That was the point at which I realized that that we don't teach this in colleges and universities, and that I could scale BNI. I could make it much larger. We now have over 9,500 groups in more than 70 countries around the world.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, you had this idea, you wanted to network and connect. What makes a BNI member? Like, how do you really get the most out of BNI?
Well, I think the way to get the most is to be engaged. You truly have to be engaged in the process. So, we have a program online, BNI University. We find that the people that complete the member success program training tend to do much better than those who don't. So, do a little bit of education, teach yourself how to network, be active in the program, do one-to-ones. One-to-ones are incredibly important because you can learn about the other person and they learn about you. And the better you are at doing weekly presentations and learning about your fellow members, the more likely you are to generate business. The other thing is, networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. And so you have to understand that this takes time, and it's all about building relationships. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. So that engagement and education, those are some of the key ways to do really well in any network, including BNI.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, it's been a huge part of my business. And even I think, like I've been saying the whole time, that relationships that I have with my chapter are even more valuable. So take us through the day of the life of the chief visionary of BNI. Like, you know, what's your role, and, you know, how are you making this machine run?
So I no longer run the day-to-day management of BNI. We have our CEO, Graham Weimiller. He's the one who's running it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sort of the Colonel Sanders of BNI now. You know, I'm the spokesperson for the organization. So doing things like this is my day. I do probably a couple of hundred interviews easily a year. I've got 4 today that I'm doing.
Wow.
And you know, my role in the company is to teach people about the process of networking and to talk about BNI in particular. So, you know, I think, and I love doing it. I think an entrepreneur is either working in their flame or working in their wax. When they're in their flame, they're on fire, they're excited. People can hear it in their voice, they can see it in the way they act. When they're working in their wax, it takes all of their energy away. And you can hear it in their voice, you can see it in the way they act. This is my flame. I love talking about how to build your business through referrals. I love talking about BNI. And that's really a normal day for me, is doing this kind of thing.
What's the key to a good commercial?
Specific. Specific is terrific when you're doing a weekly presentation or a commercial. The biggest mistake that people make is that if they have a short period of time, so they try to say everything they do, or they say, I'm a full service, whatever. So horrible mistake, especially if you're in a group like BNI where you're meeting every single week. The idea is each week you give them a nugget of information, one little tidbit of information, and the next week is something else, and the next week is something else. Let me give you an example. If we have the time, I'll give you an example of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So one of the best weekly presentations I have ever seen was done by a florist, and it was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And that particular week, he did this in 1 minute. It may take me just slightly longer because he had props that I don't have that I'll have to describe. And so he stood up and he reached under the table and he pulled out a single rose. And it was a decent rose, but it was not real big. And it had a little glass tube at the bottom, and people could see there's a grocery store sticker on the cellophane around it. And he said, what do you guys think of this rose? And they all knew it came from a grocery store, not his shop, because they could see it with the sticker.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I got this at the Winn-Dixie grocery store before I came into the meeting. It's a good rose. Winn-Dixie does a decent job. But let me show you one of my roses. And he reaches under the table again, and he pulls out this huge, long stem rose with a giant flower. And he said, here's our flowers. Now, I want you to look at the stem. The stem was like as thick as a pencil. It's a very thick stem. He said, look at the stem on my rose. He said, the stem is larger, and that means it can draw up more water into the rose. And so the rose is bigger, and it will actually last 5 to 7 days longer than a rose like this. And he said, here's the Winn-Dixie rose. And he went like this, and it was flopping back and forth, right? And he said, here's our rose. There's only 2 cents difference in price. Theirs is more. And everyone in the room was like, I'm an idiot if I buy roses at the grocery store. I need to go to you. That, to me, that's specificity. All he talked about was a rose that day. More particularly, the stem of a rose. Yet, he educated people on why his products are so superior to the competitor. That's a great example.
That's amazing. I'd love to be in a chapter with you and hear you give a commercial. But I think what's even more impressive is, you know, BNI as an organization, the way that they pivot when COVID-19 hit. And I know our chapter didn't skip a beat. And, you know, the next week we were doing a Zoom meeting. You have 9,500 chapters. How did you guys pivot to go virtually so quickly?
Yeah, well, that's a great point. We did do it very quickly, and I got to give the credit to our CEO, Graham Weimiller, he was looking around a corner. He saw this coming before anybody else. We do have chapters in China. So what happened was we experimented. We wanted it to be the BNI experience, even though it was online. So we experimented with setting up the proper PowerPoints to help, get the meeting to be a normal BNI meeting, so people would recognize it. We flipped China in January to online. Then we flipped Italy in early February. We then started opening other chapters or transitioning other chapters. By March, worldwide, the entire organization was online, which some people say, hey, you got this global business, it's not going to affect you. Wait a minute. We have 9,500 groups that meet in person. Our business was affected more than most, no more than some, but more than most, in that we're an in-person organization. So transitioning to online was disruptive, but luckily it wasn't unheard of. I mean, I wrote an article back in 2018 for Entrepreneur that said the future of face-to-face networking will be online. And, the management of BNI saw that and they were like, yeah, that's a long ways off. I said it because I thought technology was going to be the driving factor. Mixed reality, 3D technologies, that was going to be highly disruptive and that we needed to be thinking about some online system. Little did I know that less than 2 years later, we would be online, at least for now. It's not permanent. We will eventually go back to in person, but I think the genie's out of the bottle. I think what we're likely to see in the future is some hybrid of meeting in person and meeting online.
I agree. I feel like BNI is all about connecting. You do networking before the meeting, you do networking after. You're looking at people directly when they're giving their presentation. How are we going to connect on these virtual Zoom, meetings?
Well, we're connecting now I think very effectively. I think when we get to mixed reality, I honestly believe that there'll be a day where the holographic imaging and mixed reality technologies are so effective. It'll be something like, and I know it sounds crazy, but something like the Jedi Knights in Star Wars, where you're in a room and you see, there's a real Jedi and a holographic Jedi and a real Jedi. I mean, I think there'll be a day where the mixed reality kinds of technologies will allow for those kinds of meetings. By the way, when we get there, Ryan, I want to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm just saying.
I'll be Yoda.
Okay, there we go.
I mean, it's really, we're in just a virtual world. I'm a real estate broker and I actually a co-founder of a social media agency. So I've really, both my businesses are, like every other industry, have really pivoted. Where do you see the future? Like you said holograms, but what other ways are we going to be able to virtually connect and network?
So I think, my crystal ball is as good as yours. I don't know exactly how that'll be. I can tell you this: when I started BNI in 1985, it was, and I am thankful that this has happened now rather than 85, because in 85 we didn't have this kind of technology. This is unheard of. I'm talking even from a mobile phone. That was unheard of. The second largest line item in my budget in 1985 was the telephone bill.
Wow.
So there was employees, that was the number one expense. Number two was the phone bill. We used an 800 number because long distance calls were incredibly expensive. So I think, in the late 80s, early 90s, we thought that there would be, digital meetings, videos, but it was going to be on a telephone. That somehow Ma Bell was going to take their telephone and create screens on their telephone. Almost go back to and listen, watch 2001: A Space Odyssey. And that's exactly what was laid out was that you put money or put a card in a phone and you had a telephone conversation with video on with Ma Bell.
Hmm.
Yeah, I say that in that we had this vision of what was going to happen, but we didn't realize it was going to happen through Skype, through Zoom, through Instagram. So I think I don't know how it's going to happen exactly, but I think the technologies are advancing so far that we need to be prepared. I think BNI in particular needs to be prepared for the disruption. I do not want to be disrupted. I want to be the disruption. So engaging in the technologies as it comes along is absolutely critical.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, you're right. Through these interviews and talking on Zoom, like I feel like I'm still connecting with people, and it's actually easier because I'm not commuting. I'm getting more guests to the meetings because it's an easier process. So there's always the pros and the cons, but I think we're taking what we have and we're really working with it to make it right and just to adapt to the new way of life.
Yeah, we're making the best of it. There are downsides. I mean, you're not face to face, and there is a little downside there. But one of the other downsides is it's easier to be distracted. When you're on a Zoom call, it's very easy to be sitting there doing your email instead of paying attention. And so it's very important in networking meetings that you really be engaged in the meeting. And that's one of the potential downsides. And that's where I think when the technology is even better, you can tell whether somebody is truly fully engaged or not engaged in the meeting. Now that happens in person, but it's more obvious, right? When somebody's looking off on their mobile phone and doing so, you can see that in person a lot easier than you can online. So there are pros and cons, but listen, BNI Online has saved this company because, I would have seen my business of 35 years go up in viral smoke had we not transitioned successfully to online.
Question. Social media now is such a big part of virtual networking. I feel like I'm, connecting with you through Instagram. And by the way, very happy that I'm your first Insta Live.
You are.
How do you see social media and BNI kind of moving forward in this new virtual world?
So I've been talking about this for about 10 years, and I've never changed my position on the fact that I think it is not either or, it's both and. You need to have both the in-person as well as the social media online platforms. I remember in the mid 90s, particularly the late 90s, the media would ask me, don't you think that, Facebook or whatever technologies were evolving at the time, don't you think it's going to replace in person? And I remember by 2007, I had the perfect answer. The first 11 years of BNI, we opened 500 groups. So from 1985 to 1996, we had 500 groups. The next 11 years, and the internet really was thought to start to evolve around 95, 96. The second 11 years of BNI, from 97 to 2008, we had 5,000 groups.
Yeah.
Whoops, sorry. And that's what I think BNI is all about. And so what's beautiful is that you can go to a BNI meeting anywhere in the world, not know the language, but know exactly what's going on because it is done very much the same worldwide.
That's amazing. It's an amazing business that you built. You know, you have so many believers. All right, this is my last segment of the show. I got you on Insta Live. I'm so pumped about that. So what's your favorite part about the quarantine?
Yeah, the great pause. I like to call it. It's all about the way you frame things.
Got it. You know what? Can I use that tagline? I'm done
Absolutely.
with the quarantine. It's the great pause.
It's the great pause. And I think it's all part of the mindset of, look, yeah, we have no choice, right? Our choices are highly limited. So let's put ourselves in the right mindset. Starting with, I think we need to microdose the COVID news. You know, spend a little bit of time every day to see what's going on, but don't obsess over it, because the people who are obsessed over it, it's like the sky is falling, the world is coming to an end. There are opportunities right now that we can pursue, and I think hope is more powerful than fear. And people are either frozen in fear or they're focused by fear. I tell people, be focused by fear. Look for the opportunities. And if there aren't opportunities right now, then you should be pouring into yourself and activating your network, connecting with people to find out how they're doing, to be there for them, to brainstorm ideas on what you're all going to do when the great pause is over. Use this time to benefit yourself and your network. Don't be obsessed with the challenges that exist.
Wow. That's inspirational. I love it. So where do you see yourself in 1 year from now?
Oh, I am pretty convinced that we will be predominantly back to in-person meetings, but that many chapters will likely be some kind of hybrid. I don't know how many groups will stay strictly online, but who knows? There might be online groups, which I'm okay with, but I think we're likely to see a hybrid. I also believe that we're going to see a dramatic increase in the growth of the organization because this platform enables us to connect with people in ways we could never do before, including a lot of international visitation. I'm seeing so many members who are dropping in. They're asking for permission to go visit another chapter.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that.
Some in the world, anywhere in the world. And they drop in to visit other chapters. I think it's incredible, and it's strengthening for the organization. It's also helping members find ways to do business. Like you mentioned, the exercise coach, the health coach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they can have clients anywhere in the world by using the BNI network to connect with people globally. So I think that it's going to be a game changer for the organization.
Definitely.
Go ahead.
All right, this is it, my last one. So Manhattan has probably got hit the hardest in the U.S. from the coronavirus. So, but we're all motivated. I know a lot of my New Yorkers are tuning in right now. Want to give a shout out to Chapter 54,
Chapter
Society
54
of Networkers. Todd Symbol, our regional director. Do you want to give some maybe words of wisdom for us New Yorkers?
Yeah, look, if you wait until this is over to do what you need to do, your business will be over. Now's the time to truly activate your network. Call your fellow members, do one-to-ones, ask them how they're doing, be there for them. Brainstorm on what you're going to do when we're released from the great pause. I truly believe that BNI members will be way ahead of their competition because they're using this time wisely. They're attending, Instagram Live events like this. They're using YouTube to learn, to pour into themselves. BNI members are on BNI University. You know, the utilization of BNI University has skyrocketed during the pandemic. So what you have happening is, rather than people just sitting at home, they're pouring into themselves so that when they're released, they're going to be far ahead of their competition. And I think, continue to do that, I would say, with BNI members, and you'll come out of this, you'll be okay.
Wow, this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in to Insta Live with Ryan. I'm here to keep you connected, informed, and always up to date. Dr. Ivan Misner, such a pleasure speaking with you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ryan. Bye-bye.
Bye.